Today I'm going to show you how to shoot macro photography without a macro lens. Now this is a bit of a camera hack and it might feel a little bit daunting, but it's actually quite good fun and you can do this indoors at home. So it's perfect at the moment if you're not able to go out. All you have to do is take your lens off and turn it around, holding it up to the sensor. Just be careful not to touch the lens on any bits of the mount. So I've got my A7R II and my 24-70. All I'm going to do is take the lens off and then hold the lens up to the camera like this. Feels a little bit strange and it feels like you shouldn't be doing it because you have that front element and that sensor, but it actually works surprisingly well. I've tried this around the house and got some great results with most lenses. The only one that didn't work too well was the Sony 85mm 1.8, as the focusing distance was way too close to the lens. The Batis 25mm, the 24mm GM, the 24-70 and my Samyang 24mm all worked surprisingly well. So with your camera, you first need to set it to shoot without the lens. I already have this switched on as I use a lot of different manual focus lenses, as well as sometimes using this technique. You just need to hunt around in your menu for release without lens or something similar. In the A7 III, it's under tab 2, page 4 of 9, and it's release without lens. And all you need to do is enable this. All this means is the camera will take a picture whether or not there's a lens attached. Next, what I'll do is have the lens on the camera, I'll set the aperture, and then leaving the camera on, I'll remove the lens. It's best to do this indoors as you are exposing the sensor to the elements. I'd also never do this in a dusty or dirty environment. But around the house you should be okay. Also be careful with lenses that have really big front elements. You don't want to scratch the glass on the front of your lens with the metal mount. For example, my 85mm Samyang does have quite a big front element, so I'd avoid using lenses like this. So for instance, the 24-70 f4 from Zeiss has quite a small front element. The thread is 67mm and this glass is recessed in there. So I know I've got a bit of room to play with, and this is a really good lens to do this exercise with. Now with every type of photography, you've got to think about the light. You might have to use your flash head if your house is really dark, or if you don't have a flash, just use a lamp in the house to light your subject. And if you don't have any of these, get the item you want to photograph next to a big window or a big light source. Now what I'd suggest is getting the lens off your camera, turning it around and holding it with your left hand. And then just holding the camera with your right hand so you can take a photograph as normal. So I'll show you the difference when you have the lens on normally and then when you flip it around. So if I was to take a picture of these chopsticks at 24mm, I'll try and get the minimum focusing distance, which is, there we go. It's about there. So that's the minimum focusing distance with this lens. And it is around about, what's that, 20 centimeters. Now, if I flip the lens around, it's about 2 centimeters. As the lens is detached, you can't focus the normal way, so you will have to move forwards and backwards to get the focus plane where you want it. If the focus plane is too shallow, reconnect the lens, change the aperture, and then take it back off again. The smaller your aperture, the more light you will need, so either get next to a big window, use a side lamp, or if you have to, use a flash. If you do use a flash, remember to follow your basic flash rules I showed you in the Basics of Flash Photography tutorial I did a while back. I've linked it in the corner and in the description. So I'm just in my kitchen and I'm going to have a look around to see what I can photograph. Got my lens on my camera, going to take that off. Switch it around, camera's on. I'm just going to hold it up to the sensor. Now it's quite tricky in here because I'm quite far away from the window and there's not much light back here. So I'm going to try and find something in here that I like the look of, and I'm going to take it closer to the window where there's more light. So I've got these chopsticks that we bought in Singapore. We've only really used them as an ornament on the side. So I'm going to take these out and try and get a photograph of them. They have really nice detailing on the labels and on the chopsticks themselves. So I'm going to try and get a close-up of that. From these photos I'm taking, you can see that depth of focus is really shallow with this. So what I'm going to do, put the lens back on, I'm going to change the aperture. So I'll take it to say f14. So I've changed the aperture, it's closed down in the lens, and I'll just disconnect it again, hold it up to that sensor once again. And that's all you need to do really, is go around your house finding different places and different things to photograph and just experiment with them. Play around with your settings, play around with how you hold that lens. And another thing as well is you can tilt and tweak the lens a little bit to give you some kind of funky focusing looks to the shot. Another thing that works really well is some of these fluffy carpets. But what you want to do is make sure you don't ruffle them up too much because you'll get dust coming up. And with that sensor exposed, you don't want that dust on the sensor. So I'm going to be very careful. Make sure the camera's on. I'll flip the lens around, covering up that sensor. Let's see if we can get a nice close-up of this. So you can get some quite cool effects by just finding lots of different textures and lots of different things around your apartment or around your house. Now with the shot that I got earlier over by the window, there still wasn't enough light. And if that is the case, what you can do is get a small lamp like this or a little light like this. This is the LumaCube 2, which chucks out a lot of light. So I'll use the lamp first and then I'll use this. So all I'm doing is laying the lamp down so it really shines on the subject. So that's the light. Turn that off. And I'll turn on this LumaCube. The great thing with one of these lights is because it's so small, you can move it around your subject. Now go and explore around your house and see what you can find. And if you're in my Facebook group, post your best image there. Or if you're a Facebook hater and you're on Instagram or Flickr, be sure to put the hashtag #BoxheadMicMacro on it so I can find them. In the description, remember to say what lens you used, what settings you had in that photo, and how you found using this technique, whether it was easy or whether it was hard. Just be really careful when doing this, as you do have your sensor exposed and you're holding your front element close to the mounting point of the camera. Be super careful to not scratch anything or not damage any parts of your camera. You can do it, you just need to be extra careful. So let's see what you can produce. And if you've already tried this, let me know in the comments below how you got on with it. To learn more about macro photography with extension tubes, click on this next tutorial here. And to learn about flash photography, click on this video down here. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for weekly tutorials on photography and videography. I'll see you next time.